So good afternoon, everyone. I'm Patricia Alba, Assistant Director of Communications and Work Life at UFHR. Thank you for joining us for our final home ownership webinar with IFAS Volusia County Extension Agent Lisa Hamilton. Before we get started, some housekeeping items. This webinar is being recorded and will be uploaded to our Work Life website on our YouTube channel. You are welcome to turn off your camera if you don't want to be shown in the recording. Lisa will be taking questions as we move along, so feel free to post your questions in the chat and we'll keep an eye out for them. Also, please make sure that your microphone is muted to avoid interruptions during the presentation. With that said, Lisa, the floor is yours.
All right, great. Thank you, Patricia. And welcome again, everyone, to the Steps to Home Ownership. As Patricia said, this is the third part of a three-part series. And so if you attended earlier this month, or if you want to watch the video, part one was Get Ready to Purchase Your Home. That was done by Natasha Parks and Joanna Gomez, and I heard that it was really great. I couldn't be there. Then Judy Corbis and Terry Keith did Financing Your Home Purchase. And then today I'm going to do Steps to Home Ownership. And I'll cover a little bit of what they delved more deeply into, but I'm going to spend my time more on what comes after you actually get ready and then get financing. And I welcome questions along the way. As Patricia said, I'm with the University of Florida IFAS Extension. If you don't know, IFAS is the Institute of Food and Agricultural Sciences here at the university. I am a faculty member placed out in the community. UF has a partnership with every county in the state, all 67 counties, and there are faculty from the university covering a wide range of things. I'm in family and consumer sciences. I focus mainly in education or in financial, housing, and nutrition-related education, but we have everything from 4-H youth programs to natural resources and, of course, agriculture and livestock. So we offer a lot in your county. If you don't know, you need to check us out. I'm also a part of a big team. University of Florida IFAS Extension has a large housing education footprint. This is one of the things that we're known for nationally. And we do first-time homebuyer. We do that every month. We do it statewide. We offer it all over the state, but we do so much more than that. We have we do education for renters, and we do a lot of programming for homeowners on a variety of topics. You can find us on Eventbrite. You can reach out to any one of us if you're interested in learning more about what we offer. One particularly good thing that we offer is counseling. IFAS Extension is a HUD-approved housing counseling agency, and that's a special designation that allows us to teach classes and give certificates of completion that are required for down payment assistance, rental assistance, utility assistance, all kinds of different types of funding that the government requires education as part of the eligibility. And so I'm a HUD certified counselor. I'm an accredited financial counselor. I do a lot of one-on-one counseling with people. There's no substitute for you getting to talk to somebody that understands the process so that you can ask your questions and figure out your strategy. And I'm available to any and all of you. And there are 6 of us in IFAS that have this credential now. And so we'd love to talk to you if we can be useful. And of course, as with all of us, all of our divisions, operate in accordance with the federal law and U.S. Department of Agriculture, civil rights regulations and policies. And we have a lot of training in fair housing. So if you or someone you know has experienced any sort of housing discrimination and needs help filing a complaint or knowing what to do, you can also reach out to us for that. And now I'm going to, no further ado, I'm going to jump into the topic. You know, this is called the steps to purchasing a home or steps to home ownership. You know, if you Google the steps to home ownership, you can find 4, 10, 15, many different numbers of steps. When I teach this in the regular monthly homebuyer class, I kind of break it out into 4 steps or 4 areas: getting ready, getting qualified for a mortgage, finding a realtor and the house, and then closing the purchase. And today I'm going to put a little more steps in between there I think I've got 11 steps today. I would say that step one is to assess your readiness to purchase, really learn about the market that you're in. Think about your financial readiness, but also your emotional readiness, and make sure that if you are buying the house with someone, where are you similar? What do you agree on? What are your differences? Wrap your head around the commitment of homeownership, and think about why you're buying the house. What are the long-term goals? And how are you going to do this and remain stably housed? Because homeownership has a lot of costs. And that's one of the things that we really talk about a lot in the classes, and certainly in counseling, is help you really look at your financial picture and think about your goals to determine if you're ready for homeownership. And of course, I chose this meme because if the housing market would crash like it's 6 hours into a 5-hour energy drink, I could buy a $300 house for $125,000, because right now the housing market is different than it's been, in my lifetime. And it's a very challenging time to buy a home because affordable houses are scarce, prices are going up, interest is high, and now in Florida, we're dealing with a lot of very high insurance rates. And so it's a very challenging time. So what you need to know is it takes a team to help you buy a house. You need that lender, that loan officer, because the lender and loan officer is going to be with you all the way through the purchase process. And so is your realtor. Once you get approved, then you, the realtor and the lender, are going to work together to close the deal, to close the loan with you. Home inspector is a very important person in the process of buying your house. You're going to need an insurance agent. You're going to have to choose an insurance agent and shop for insurance. Homeowners insurance is something you really need to do early, especially now in the market as it is. And then you're going to work with a title agent to close the loan. There may be some other professionals that you deal with along the way, depending on what the property that you buy. But, we really like to say that you're in charge of the team. And we advocate for you being assertive, asking questions, interviewing more than one professional, really looking at what they have to offer you. It becomes a part-time job to do the process and protect yourself. I just realized the one person I don't have on this picture is your friendly housing counselor. So we, as a housing counselor, we are here all along the way to help you with questions, and help you understand the consumer protections that are there for you in the process. So just briefly, I know that Natasha and Joanna talked to you about building your credit scores. It's just critically important that you start working on your credit early, because it takes some time. You need at least a 6-month to a 1-year strategy for building that score where it needs to be. But I always tell people, do not obsess over the number. Get in the range where you can, in the best range that you can, so you can get the best interest rate that you can. And if you are buying a home with a partner or spouse, then both of your credit it's critical that both of you understand where you're at and what the lenders are going to see. We want you to, look at all of your credit reports and monitor your credit while you're in the process, so that there's no surprises and you know what you're going to hear when you go in to see the lender. And then, you cannot be too knowledgeable about your financial situation. Know your budget, know how much you can afford, how much you feel you can afford to pay. You got to control your debt. That debt to income ratio is really the most critical number in purchasing a house, because the amount of monthly debt payment that you have is going to determine how much the banks will loan you, how much house payment they think you can afford. I mean, that really is what it comes down to. So, you control income, right, by trying to make more money, but really you have to manage the debt. And then you've got to manage your debt to pay off the house. And so it's just so critical to be a successful homeowner, to build wealth, to, the dream of home ownership, yes, is getting the house, but the real dream is paying it off, and retiring and putting your kids through college and going on the dream vacation. And Americans build wealth through home ownership. And so, you really, every minute that you spend getting control of your financial situation will pay off in the long run. So another big part of it, of course, is, as I mentioned, is your income, and how much and how good you are at saving money. Not only you need to save a down payment, they range from 3% to 20%, depending on the kind of loan you're getting. Closing costs range from 4 to 6%, depending. You're going to have new expenses as a homeowner that you haven't had before, maintenance. You're going to need furniture. You got to move. There's utility costs, all kinds of things. And so it's just essential that you develop some skills at saving money, to succeed, to build wealth, and and succeed in homeownership. Another thing, this is something that most of us don't try to do until we actually buy a house, and that's find a mortgage, and wrap our minds around the different kinds of mortgages. And I know that Judy and Terry talked a lot about the different kind of mortgages last week, so I'm not going to go into that, other than to say that, you talking to people about their mortgages. What kind of mortgage do you have? What interest rate are you paying? How does your lender work with you? Really taking some time to delve into understanding the different mortgage options that are available to you is a good idea. Most lenders have, they have many different loan products. So you may give your Social Security, give your information to, several lenders. They should be offering you more than one loan. It shouldn't be, oh, we think you should just go FHA. And that, a lot of times that's what happens to us. Most Americans utilize FHA as their first mortgage product to buy a house. But every lender has a first-time home buyer mortgage option that only requires you to put down 3% mortgage. Sometimes it'll have other reduced costs. And if you don't ask for it, they may not give it to you. So I'm a big advocate of really talking with your lender and saying, are you showing me all of the loans that, that you could offer me, and talking to people about it. I'm not sure how much Terry and Judy delved into down payment assistance, but I do a lot of work. I work with a lot of people finding options for down payment assistance and closing cost assistance through programs. And there are many in the state of Florida. Most people have heard of the SHIP program, which is usually available through your county or a city. A bigger city in your area, where you have to qualify by income, by household size. The house has to qualify by purchase price and location. And then you can get, some considerable assistance to bring the down payment down, or they'll actually pay money toward the down payment and the closing cost. So I recommend, looking into that, and you can talk to any one of the extension agents that are on the housing team in that area, and we can help you find out what's available where you're buying a house. But in addition to SHIP, the Florida Housing Finance Corporation is a state agency that has funding that can be used in any county in the state. Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac have locators, and they will help with 3% down, or 3% of the down payment for homes that are foreclosed through them. They've got a really good tool. Bank of America often offers a first-time home buyer program, and the amount of money available varies depending on what they're rolling out now. Regions has got a first-time home buyer program going on right now. ViStar Credit Union will always give you $5,000 toward closing cost. There are banks that offer 100% financing, and you don't necessarily have to have, the best credit. So just keep in mind that lenders want to lend, right? They're in the business of making money from us on mortgages, and they make a lot of money from Americans from our mortgages. And so don't be afraid, to talk to a lender and ask them, what do you have to offer? And if you want more information on any of the down payment assistance programs, just reach out. Okay, so I'm up to step number 6 in this process. So, what I've said is that you have gotten your financial house in order, and now you are ready to reach out to a lender and get pre-approved. You're going to bring all of the documents that the lender wants you to bring, and there's a list. I've got a screenshot coming up, and you need to remember that you need to be pre-approved, not pre-qualified. Pre-qualified is they took a look at maybe at your credit score, your finances, and they took information from you and they said, yeah, we think we can give you a loan. Pre-approved is you gave them your bank statements, your pay stubs. They really looked at all of your financial documents and your financial situation, and they're giving you a letter that says Lisa is pre-approved to buy a home or shop for a home for $300,000. And so with that, I can then go to a realtor and say, I'm ready to shop. And then realtors are very happy when you come as a pre-approved buyer with everything in order. Here's a screenshot, and I'm happy to share this list with anybody. This is just a list of all the documentation that lenders are going to need. They're going to need all of your ID, income verification, employment verification, certainly your credit reports. If you own any other properties, any other assets you have, they're going to ask for everything. If you have student loans, they're going to ask for some information there. So I recommend that when you're getting ready in the getting ready phase, that you get all these copies of these things together and you figure out, where do I get all this stuff? And you have it handy, because as you go through the process of purchasing the home, they will ask you for things multiple times and it can be frustrating. And so you can lower your stress in the process by getting prepared, having a folder with everything in it so you can send it out when it's requested. And it's also very important that you respond to them quickly, because it keeps the process moving along. Once you connect with the lender, then in processing your loan, you're going to see this document. And this is something that HUD wants me to show you. I always make sure I'm following what the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development wants us to make sure you see. And this is the loan estimate form. Literally, you're going to see this form in black and white. It's 3 pages long, and it really sets out in extreme detail every cost associated with the purchase. And it is an estimate. So as the loan is being processed and they're adding more information, when you find out what your insurance is going to be, and when the lender calculates all the fees and costs, and they're going to keep adding numbers to it. And every time they do, they're going to have you sign it. And this is an excellent consumer protection, because literally black and white, you can lay it side by side. You should understand every number on there and all the changes that are made. Now, it is an estimate, and the law says that once they put a number on the estimate, they cannot increase it. So this estimate is always going to be a little high. And sometimes it can be kind of scary because you didn't think you were going to have to spend so much in closing cost. Typically, what we see is the actual end costs are less than what's on the estimate. So with your pre-approval letter, and you're all ready to go, then you're going to hire a real estate agent. I highly recommend that you get referrals from other people. You want to talk to everybody that you know and everybody that they know, and find out who found a good realtor, somebody that knew the market, someone that closed on time, that communicated well, that listened, that was no drama, that was available when they were available. We want you to interview the agents and make sure that you really click with communication, because that is so important. And also find out, is this person experienced in your market? How many houses have they sold recently? Are they going on vacation while you're looking for a house? You really want to not be afraid to ask questions and make sure that this is the right realtor for you. There are many, many realtors in the world, and a lot of them don't have a lot of experience. So you want to find somebody who is. And then you and the realtor and your family and all your friends are going to help you shop for a house. You want to create a wish list, but you also need to be realistic about what's the market has to offer you. And this is where a realtor really earns their money. So the realtors know the market. They're going to network on your behalf and try to find houses maybe that haven't gone on the market yet, or not on, that are not listed yet. And you do the same thing. In the market that we're in right now, you need to be networking and letting everybody that be aware that you're looking for a house and that you're ready to buy a house, and that, this is what you're wanting or where you want to live. And, that adage that most jobs are not listed and that most people get their jobs from someone that they know or an inside referral. That's very true in home purchases as well. Properties change hands between friends and family all the time. It's less stressful for people. So just really get out there and work it. Okay. Once you find the house, then you're going to make an offer. And this is when the contractual process steps in. And you are, I'm going to show you a picture of the most commonly used contract here in Florida. But you and your realtor are going to fill out the contract, and then you and your realtor and your home inspector are going to go through the process of moving toward closing. So most realtors in Florida use an as-is residential contract for sale and purchase. This is available from the Florida Bar. You can look at it. It's about 12 pages long, but it's pretty readable. It's not too difficult to understand. One of the things that HUD wants you to know is that there are protections for you as the buyer, built into this contract. But you and your realtor are going to fill out your portion. This is how you make the offer. You name all the parties to the contract. You put down how much you want to buy it for, where you're getting your financing, if you're using down payment assistance, and your primary lender. You're going to estimate the closing date. You're going to give other information based on maybe some things that are in the house if you would want to buy those things. And then also in the contract, there are contingencies. For example, you can't buy the house if you don't get the financing, if you don't get approved. And so, your offer is subject to you getting financing, subject to satisfactory inspections. And there can be many inspections depending on all the features of the home. It's subject to the home appraising for the value that the bank will lend it to you, will lend you to buy it. And then if you're doing any kind of down payment assistance, it's also going to be subject to you being approved for all the financing that you need to buy the house. This is something else that HUD wants me to make sure you see. For your protection, get a home inspection. Make sure that that property has had every inspection that it needs to. The general home inspection is a 4-point inspection, but you may need to pay additional money for a termite and wood destroying organism inspection. There may be a septic system. There could be a well. There could be, we bought a property that actually has a sauna room, a sauna building out back. And we made sure that that it was in working order. So we knew what we were getting into. Some of this, the bank is going to require, if you're doing any of the down payment assistance programs, they require even water quality inspections. And so, but even if you're in a house that you've been living in for 7 years and renting, or if it's your grandmother's house, we still strongly recommend that you get a home inspection. You can be there during the inspection, you and your realtor. Some inspectors don't mind if you ask questions, some of them do, but you have the right and you're paying for it. And it's not cheap. It's going to be, $400, $500. And so you really do want to utilize this requirement to make sure you understand the home, because the law says that while you're in this inspection period of the contract, 15 days, you have 15 days by law to decide whether or not to continue with the purchase. After the seller accepts your offer, then you have 15 days. But in this market where houses are going so fast, then one of the ways that your offer can be more attractive is if you reduce that inspection time. So you and your realtor will have a list of inspectors that they use and will help you get an inspector scheduled. But you say maybe you'll get the inspection done in a week, in 7 days. And so that reduces the amount of time that the seller has the property off the market. So if you come back and say, no, I don't want to buy it after all, because you found something you just really couldn't live with, or if there's some kind of problem that you can't resolve, if they don't want to make any repairs on the home, but maybe you don't have the money to fix some things that are wrong with the home, or maybe the bank isn't going to give you financing if the things aren't repaired, but the seller says, no, I'm not interested in doing that. So this gives everybody time to see if the deal can be worked out. I'm going to pause just a second. Patricia, do we have any questions?
I didn't see any questions come through. You guys can post them in the chat, and Lisa will answer them as they come along.
Okay, I feel like I'm going pretty quickly, so I was just going to pause for a minute. It's a lot of information.
Let's see.
I hope I'm not boring you, and I hope I'm not scaring you. So, all right, I'm going to keep going. So after the inspection, if you say that the house passes inspection, you're happy, the sellers are happy. Now you have a firm contract. The contract goes to the lender for them to start actually processing the loan. And then the lender's going to say it's time to get the house appraised. Now, the appraisal is not an inspection. The appraisal is a market valuation, an objective third-party valuation of the property value right now. It's required by the lender. You're going to pay for it as the buyer, and this is your appraisal. The seller is not going to know about it. You don't have to share the information with them. It's a little different than the home inspection, although some realtors tell me that some inspectors will go out and look at the properties, and some will do more of a bench appraisal. They're going to compare recent sales in the area where the home is to determine what the market value is. Now, here's a question for you. If you're buying a house for $250,000 and say the property appraises for $252,000, so the appraisal came in $2,000 above the purchase price, is that a good thing or not a good thing?
That should be a good thing.
Yeah, it is. Thank you. Thanks for answering. Yes, it is a good thing. That means you're purchasing a house and you have $2,000 in equity. So, but can the seller raise the price because the appraisal came in over the purchase price? No. No, because it's your appraisal that you've paid for, and the seller isn't going to know about it. I mean, the seller's realtor may ask your realtor, but your realtor should say, are you okay if I share the information with anyone, right? So, but that's, industry standard. Most people are not going to try to be any sneaky about that or anything. Here's the opposite question. What if you're buying the house for $250,000 and it appraises for $245,000? If it appraises for less than what you've offered to purchase it for? Any ideas? Options there? This is not common. It's rather rare. Your realtor is an expert in the market and is going to help you make an offer on the property that's appropriate. But if it did appraise for less, the sellers can drop the price. You can chip in the cash difference if you want to. But remember, if the deal can't be worked out, then there are protections for you in the contract. So you can walk away if you absolutely need to. It's rare, but we want to let you know about the appraisal process.
We have 2 questions that came through, Lisa.
Sure.
One is for the inspection. Is it fair to say that you need to identify the inspector before placing an offer?
You can talk to your realtor about it. Yeah, because you'll choose your realtor. You and the realtor will look at homes. And when you find one that you want to make an offer on, yeah, it's not a bad idea to have a home inspector in the queue. Most realtors do. So, and most home inspectors, they go out as quickly as possible. And they can usually turn around the inspection report, 24, 48 hours.
Okay, and the second question that came through is, are there resources for finding trustworthy inspectors or realtors or appraisers, especially if not too many people in one social circle have bought houses?
Mhm. Yeah, well, there's the Department of Business Professional Regulation, Professional Business Regulation. There's a state agency where realtors must, register, where their licenses are issued, and also for home inspectors. So they should be licensed and insured as well. So you can look there for people in your area. And you could also check good old Better Business Bureau, or just Google the person and see if there are any problematic reviews or good reviews out there. I think that's one positive thing about social media. You can get some reviews. Good questions, you guys. Okay. If there are no others, then I'm going to go on. So you found a house, you made an offer, you had it inspected, it's been appraised. Now you're really on your way to closing the loan. And the next thing that happens is the bank will issue a loan commitment. And it just, when I first learned about this, it kind of blew my mind. You've been working with your lender all this time. You were pre-approved, then they started, working on the loan. And now, after you've spent money for an appraisal and money for a home inspection and your deposit and everything else, now they will make the commitment to actually making the loan. Once the appraisal happens and they're checking your credit, they're asking you for updated copies of your employment or your pay stubs, and they're checking you all along to make sure that you still qualify for the loan. And now they're going to issue the loan commitment. If you are using a down payment assistance program, this is when the down payment assistance loan gets processed. The primary lender has to issue a loan commitment before that city or county or state or wherever you're getting the money starts processing your application. So it can take a little bit longer to process or purchase a house if you're using any of those down payment assistance options. But people do it every day. No reason not to do it, but it does take a little bit longer. And now, when you're getting closer to closing, then it's time to buy your insurances. So you need homeowners insurance to cover the content and structure. And we delve much more deeply into homeowners insurance in Florida in our home buyer class. And I'll show you the link to that at the end of the presentation. Right now in Florida, homeowners insurance is going up. I can tell you that my house payment has gone up $500 a month in the last 2 years, strictly because of homeowners insurance costs. And we have a new roof, a new air conditioner, and we upgraded our windows. And so it is really tough out there to find insurance right now. But shopping makes a difference, right? It is still, I would think that the insurance companies would be very close. But if you keep shopping, you will find, hundreds of dollars of differences in your annual premiums. And so shopping for homeowners insurance and asking around and, talking to people that have insurance and finding out who's covering them, what they're paying, is a really good idea. And then making sure that you're getting every discount that you possibly can, is a really good idea too. And then when you buy a house, you actually buy title insurance. Most of us are familiar with our car title. And when you sell your car, you sign it over, you give it to the new owner, and you transfer title. They go down to the DMV and they register the car. Now they register as the owner. So when you buy a house, there is a chain of title. And the title agent actually checks that there are no liens against the property, unpaid contractor bills, or, something, an heir to the property filed a lien against it, or, there can be things, all kinds of things. So the title insurance company ensures that the seller is giving you good and marketable title to the property. Now, in case there are any claims against the title once you are the owner, you buy a policy of title insurance for yourself as the owner, and you buy a policy for the lender. In case there are any claims against the title after you become the owner, then the title insurance would pay any legal fees and pay to have any title work done on the property. Questions on that?
There's one. Is it recommended to shop around for insurance every 2 to 3 years, kind of like with the car insurance? Or
That's
is
a
one
good,
stuck with the insurer long-term once you sign up with them?
excellent question. Shop every year. Right now, I normally I was shopping like every other year just because it kind of felt like a hassle. But wow, after with the way ours has gone up, and also haggle, let them know. Wait a minute, this house has new windows. It has double pane window. Um, we they gave us such a small discount for having a new roof, but at least we got something. So it's worth shopping. That's a great question. Okay, we are all the way to step number 11, which is closing the deal. And, as you're going through this part of the process, this is that time when, yeah, you may be getting calls from people asking you for documents, or you're getting a copy of that loan estimate emailed to you every day, and they're asking you to sign it again, sign it again. You're trying to move, you're trying to get, things wrapped up, and it can be really stressful close to the end. But just hang in there. Make sure that if somebody's asking you for something, you get it to them right away, especially if you're using any of the down payment assistance options, because you're one of many files. And if they don't have your documents when they're processing, they're going to put you on the bottom of the stack, and you may not hear back from them for a while. So you want to be very proactive. It can be an overwhelming time, but you really want to stay on top of everything that your lender and your realtor and the title agent and anybody else needs. 3 business days before closing, 72 business hours before closing, the law says you are supposed to receive this closing disclosure. Now you notice it looks like the loan estimate, and that is on purpose. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau is a very wonderful government agency that protects consumers, and these forms were developed by the CFPB so that you could take the estimate and lay it alongside the final document. The final, this closing disclosure is the final deal on paper, all the numbers. And it's meant so that everything is, like I said, literally black and white, big headings, easy to read, easy to understand. So a lot of times people don't get this 3 days before closing, and it's just because, realtors, lenders, everybody are trying to get all the numbers, the final numbers calculated and then on paper. So you might receive it a day before closing. I ask you, please look at it and make sure everything makes sense to you. If you have any questions, talk to your lender, talk to your realtor. I actually go over a lot of these with people. They may call me right before closing, and we'll go over all these costs just so that you understand what they are. And if anything's missing, which sometimes someone doesn't put in, the cost of the homeowner's insurance, and that can change the amount of your payment. So it's just a really good idea to look at this and make sure it's complete. It's actually 5 pages long, and I'm not going to try to show you everything on this little screen, but it's 5 pages long, and it really discloses everything about the loan, about your escrow account, all the realtor costs. You'll see actually what the seller made and what, all of the seller's information is in there as well. It's a complete disclosure of every financial transaction related to the sale of this property. It's a good document, and you want to keep it because it does list all of the partners. It has all the contact information. And so, you know, a couple of years from now, you might want to refer someone to someone that you worked with during the purchase of your home, and it's a handy document to have around. Okay, now you've made it. You know, you got the closing disclosure, the numbers look good. The closing is where the property is transferred from the seller to the buyer. Um, you know, there's a stack of papers for you to sign. You're going to sign the closing disclosure. There's a promissory note, a mortgage, a deed. There's all kinds of affidavits where you say, yes, I did get a copy of the appraisal. Yes, I did get a copy of this, you know, acknowledgement and this disclosure and, you know, all that kind of stuff. And, you know, there are some people who like to read everything before they sign it. I'm in that group. And then there are some people who just don't have that detailed kind of brain, such as my husband. So, you know, over the years, we've developed an agreement, you know, about how long it's okay with him for me to take to really look things over. That's why I ask for things up front. Ideally, they would give you a copy of the closing documents in advance. That does not always happen. But yeah, you know, find that balance. Take your time, look at things. There have been things that were in closing documents that I said I did not want to sign. There was an affidavit that said I acknowledged that I received something like 3 days before the closing, and I didn't receive it, and I didn't want to sign it. And then they said, oh, okay, no problem. So don't be afraid to look at the documents, ask someone to explain to you what it means, but also be aware of you're not a lender unless you are. And so there are some things that you may not understand, and you have to ultimately decide, am I happy with this deal? Is this the house that I want to be in? And I'm going to go through this process. I'm going to get through this process and close on the home. Now, at the closing, you should receive your keys and be able to go move into your new home. But sometimes if you close on a Friday, you know, the title agent is also the person who's responsible for transferring all the money and making sure that all the money is digitally or electronically transferred. You know, some places may allow you to bring a cashier's check for cost. Most of the time they want electronic transfers. Nowadays, with the fraud that we have via email and via transfers, they're going to recommend, it's recommended that you actually go into your bank if you're making any electronic transfers to the title company for the purchase. You want to be very, very careful about those things. Not necessarily believe that an email from the title company is truly the title company. You want to go to the bank to make transfers. So if it's a Friday afternoon at 5 o'clock and the money and everything has not transferred by the time the office closes, you may not get your keys that day. So you probably want to try to close earlier, you know, close earlier in the day if you can, close in the middle of the week, maybe not on a Friday. But you can work that out with your realtor. And, you know, the title agent is normally chosen by the seller, but you are within rights to reach out and talk to that title company about any questions you have as well. Okay, I got one last thing to tell you here. After you close in Florida, there is a homestead law, and it is a homestead exemption. It actually has several protections for homeowners. It reduces your property taxes, and I'm not going to go into the math on that, but you have to file that the property you're living in is your homestead. It is your primary residence. And you must file for that homestead exemption between January and March 1st. You can do it online now at, I think, every county in the state, or you can go down and file for homestead. Homestead has a lot of great protections. If for some reason, you know, you had a lawsuit against you, and they filed a lien against your home, they cannot make you sell your primary residence or your homestead to satisfy a judgment. So, and that's for you and your spouse and children. So it really is a great protection that Florida homeowners have, and your realtor and lender will talk to you more about it. But we always want to make sure that we tell our buyers about it. And with that, I will say that working with first-time home buyers is something I really love doing. And here's my contact information, which I can come back to in a minute. And then I wanted to put this up for you too, and I can put this in the chat. This is our Eventbrite page, our Eventbrite link to our monthly homebuyer class, and we would love to have you. And with that, I will ask for questions.
Hey, so before anybody leaves, we also posted a link in the comments for our survey. Your responses really help us program upcoming webinars. So if you can take a couple of minutes, it shouldn't take you more than 3 minutes to complete that survey. The question we have is, do you need to have lived in the home for a minimum amount of time to be eligible for the homestead exception?
When you are the owner of record, you are eligible to apply for it. So no, you do not have to have lived there for a period of time. You're now the owner of record after the closing, after your documents have been filed with the county.
Okay. We had a question if you could put back your contact information,
Oh, sure.
as
In
well as
fact,
link to the home buyer class.
yeah, what I'm going to do is I will go ahead and put, there is my email address, and I'm going to put the link to that's our link to the home buyer class there, but I'm happy to share that screen. Let me go back there. I should have put them both on one screen. This might be easier with the
Yeah, perfect. Next question we got was, is there a condition for occupation until the seller finds a place to live? Is there a maximum amount of time that the seller legally has until they must move out?
That's a really good question. I would put that to a realtor because I'm not sure if there are any laws, but what I know is that there can be negotiation. For example, my brother was renting, he had a house in Gainesville, he was renting it out and then he sold it. And the buyers, they wanted to, I can't remember why. The buyers ended up renting it from him for 17 days. And I think, because that's the loan was being processed, but they needed to move in and he had already moved out. So it wasn't a problem. So they negotiated a little rental agreement along with the purchase contract, and they paid him 17 days worth of rent. Sometimes, I know in my office, there's an elderly guy, and he bought a house from a woman who was moving in with her daughter, and the two of them bonded, and he helped her clean out the garage and fix things. He helped her move out. So there's all kinds of different ways that this can happen. Most people focus on the money, but changing homes, buying and selling a home is really, one family passing their home on to another family. And I find that there's often a real human, human connection and humans helping each other in the process. I don't know if that exactly answers it, but you can always ask if you need something special. Otherwise, I would say the expectation is that you're going to get the keys at closing.
Next question we have is, in the example form, the prepayment penalty was around 3,000. Is it usually around that amount, or can it vary?
Yeah, that is a sample tool from the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, and I really what great eyes you have to have seen that. Usually many mortgages do not have prepayment penalties. If they do, then it's usually only if you prepay it within 2 years. And because the bank wants to make its interest, right? They want to recoup and make some money on the mortgage. And so But it would be set at a percentage or a certain rate, and it would be based on the specific mortgage. I'm sure there are limits to how much they can charge. Good question.
Let's see, let me go to the back to see if I didn't miss anything. Just- Any other questions? Oh, here we go. Are prepayment fees for any early payments, or if you just pay off the entire thing?
Usually, I think it's if you pay off the note, right? If you pay it in full. Most loans will allow you to make payments directly to principal, right? As a way to reduce the length of the mortgage, reduce the interest cost, to pay it off. So I'm not aware of restrictions on making payments to principal or having a fee for making payments to principal to reduce the amount. I'm only aware of prepayment penalty if you pay it off in full.
Any more questions, you guys? You can also unmute yourself if you want to ask your question. Let's check it
And I would, appreciate feedback too. Was this, too much? Is this good? Did you get something out of it?
Hi, Ms. Hamilton. This is Asad. I'm one of the graduate students at the university. Thank you for a wonderful talk. My wife and I were actually in the process of going through actually a pre-approval, and we're looking to be first-time home buyers. One thing that kind of caught us off guard in the last couple of weeks, we were going through a mortgage calculator, and we actually put in some values to see how we just put an example down of a $500,000 home at a rate of 7.3%. And we actually learned that over the duration of 30 years, you'd be paying $725,000 in interest.
Right.
Our total amount that would pay back would be around 1.2 million on a $500,000 property. And I think actually looking at those numbers actually caught me a bit off guard too. So I think that's something I just wanted to share. And that's why we logged onto the webinar today. It was just to get some more information that sometimes these numbers and percentages can seem kind of vague, but when you put them into that calculator, for me, that kind of was a real eye opener. And thank you for your talk today. We learned a lot as well.
Oh, good. I'm glad. And I'm so glad that you brought that up because banks make a lot of money on us, a lot. And so I love that the calculators are out there and that we can use them. There is a rule of thumb, though, that if you make payments directly to principal, and this is one thing we're taught, that if your payment is, let's just say $500 a month for easy math, and if you make one extra $500 a month payment directly to principal, that, it can reduce a 30-year mortgage, nearly by half if you did that every year. Or if you make payments every 2 weeks instead of every month, then that calculation is principal times interest times time. So if you're reducing that principal, you're reducing massive amounts of interest. That calculation, by the way, was from professional development classes before we were at a 7% interest rate. And so it's just really tough right now. 7% is not the highest it's ever been in my lifetime. If interest rates were at 14% and people were still buying houses. So, but that's part of the financial decision. I think that you did an excellent thing by looking that up.
Hey, any more questions? We do only have 2 minutes, so I guess thank you so much, Lisa, for your time today. We really appreciate it. For everybody that's here, the webinar will be uploaded to our YouTube channel and to our WorkLife website, and we will send you guys an email with the link to that information. So, anything you might want to add, Lisa, before we say bye?
Well, good luck to everybody that's in the process. And don't hesitate to reach out to us. That's what we're here for. And we really enjoy helping people get a home.
Well, thank you, Lisa, and thank you, everybody. Bye.